I was listening to these stories that we've been listening to, and I was so encouraged that, God is pleased with faith. That's the only thing that pleases God is faith. And so each of us have a faith story that we're walking in. You've heard 4 stories. You're hearing 4 stories today, but each of you have a story too. So I want to encourage you in that. And aren't you glad that God is a God of redemption? Thank you, Lord. We need to start that.
Start the timer.
Yeah, start our timer here. Yeah, well, I was born at a very early age. Okay, so, and I had the blessing and the blessing of God to be born in an Amish home. My parents had 14 children, and so from early on, we were taught to be savers. So we didn't have everything that everybody else had. And the thing is, I often realize, looking back now, we didn't grow up with air conditioning. And so when you went into a dentist's office, it was so freezing cold. Because you grew up in a home without air conditioning, you got used to your surroundings. But I grew up in a very happy home. We had a lot of fun together as kids. So when I was 16, I left the Amish, and when I was 22, I went to Florida, and that's where I met Connie. And then served and got married and served in a church in New Jersey for 17 years. We had a heart for missions, Connie and I. We just wanted to serve God. And the church we were going to at the time, there was really nothing for us to do, so we moved to New Jersey at a church plant and got involved there, and had my own drywall business there, and started a drywall business, and that was kind of the beginning of our journey there. So. Yeah, okay, right, that's right. Right now, I'm the senior elder at New Life Family Center at a Dove Church in New Holland, and I have a drywall business. Okay, thank you. And it's called First Choice Interiors, and they call me the plaster pastor. So.
All right. Well, my name is Connie, of course, and I grew up in a Christian home, very conservative Mennonite. My father really didn't know what to do with me because I was so into the arts and kind of out of the box, out of 4 children, and grew up in Indiana. And so I kind of just was always beat to a different drum, and he could not figure out who I was.
I can't either.
But I was the youngest of 4, and we went on a lot of trips because my parents liked to travel. They were older. They were almost like my grandparents in age. And so we went to Florida, and I met Dave there. That's another story. And if he tells his side of the story, he'll say, I asked him to marry him. And that is not true. So talk to me about that. But anyway.
She forced me.
So let's go on. So I was 19, and we were attending Hopewell. By the way, the first big initial part of our financial situation is we borrowed $2,000 for our wedding at a local bank at home in Indiana. So that was our beginning. We started off really well with a nice loan, and $2,000 back 37 years ago was quite a bit of money for a wedding. And so my parents didn't have the money. They didn't like the way I was going with the kind of dress and the things that I wanted. So I said, okay, I'll just get a loan and do my own thing. So that was kind of how we started out. And we, like Dave said, we moved to New Jersey to help out with the church there, and we started our family. We have 3 children. Tanya is the oldest, and we have 2 boys, and we have 9 grandchildren. Tanya and Rich have 7, and they didn't really tell us that when we went through this whole journey, they were going to have that many kids, but anyway, it's all working out. We work together as a team at New Life Family Center, and love it, love ministry. That was really what our heart was for ministry when we first got married. And I also started 12 and a half years ago, Cavod Academy of the Arts. Cavod means the glory of God in Hebrew, and that's really our vision, is to see the arts come back to the Lord. And so that's in New Holland. That's a lot of fun. And our church meets in the Cavod Theater building. So finances have always been a biggest part of our disagreement. We could not agree on finances for the life of us. I mean, I thought he saved every penny, but it got us nowhere. So I was like, okay, so what the heck, whether I spend, whether I don't, is not going to make a bit of difference because nothing that we did would work. So when we were on our honeymoon is when it all started, is when we traveled, my parents, we were just pleasingly plump, and our family is, and so we love to eat. And so no matter where we went, to a gas station, we got a candy bar, we got a soda. Every Dairy Queen was our favorite in our family. We'd say, oh, there's a Dairy Queen. An hour after we ate, we stopped at Dairy Queen.
We were there last year, too. So.
Right. I still like Dairy Queen. But anyway.
No, I'm saying your family would say that.
Oh, my
it's
family
the same
would say
Dairy Queen we went to last time.
Yes,
we
yes,
went
right.
through the same.
Everything was marked. So we went to Florida on our honeymoon and stopped at a gas station, and I wanted a candy bar. And he's like, you don't need a candy bar. We just had lunch. I said, but I need a candy bar. He's like, you don't need a candy bar. And so that was the beginning. And so on our honeymoon, we Mennonited our way for our honeymoon and slept at people's houses because we didn't want a hotel because he couldn't afford a hotel. So that was the beginning of our
I grew up in
journey.
a family of 14. Remember that?
So as you can tell, it started off a little rocky.
Anyway, so we were happily married. The thing is, in our dating relationship, we broke up 3 times. And so it was always my fault, and it was. I was like, anyway. But we got married, and we lived happily ever after we discovered our financial situation. Okay. When we realized that I'm stumbling here. Okay, we moved to New Jersey.
Stick to the notes.
Okay. Because of our passion to serve God. And the thing that we discovered about ourselves soon after we got married, or as we were dating, is that we loved to sing together. So in New Jersey, we led worship for 17 years. I became a youth pastor 16 and a half years into it. And by the time we left at 17 years, I was a youth pastor for 1.5 years. And that was the only time I ever got paid at church. I'm not bitter, I'm just mad. So okay. But in those 17 years, we moved 11 times. And I always thought it would be a better place where and we taught our kids that, when you go to a new school, you can learn to meet new people. So they really adjusted well. They really did, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
Yeah, and my drywall business that I started in New Jersey was so I could be self-supportive. And that's kind of like a little bit of a poverty mentality type thing, you want to support yourself, but at the same time, there's a little bit of like the laborer is worthy of his hire, so of his, he should get what he deserves.
So in his endeavor to support himself, he had pity on every single person around that didn't have a job. And so he would see somebody that had a sign that said homeless. He picked them up and offered to teach them drywall for 3 hours and paid them. And of course, this infuriated me. But in 1985 to 87, he did work for a large contractor, and we had about 25 to 30 employees by that time. We were growing and really naive. In South Jersey, it's not good to be naive in construction.
Yeah, we were in South Jersey.
And so we did a large work with this guy owed us over $160,000, and he kept saying, just do one more building in this whole development. And the thing that was really hard for me is I had this intuition to begin with that this contractor was a jerk, and he was taking us for all, and I was like, I don't think we should take this contractor. And he insisted, he was a nice guy, and so Dave just always had ministry on his mind, and we went ahead and took it, and that was really hard for me to swallow. I took my children and begged him to pay us. I mean, I remember crying. I was determined to get this money. I said, we're going to lose everything. And I had my little kids in hand. And he said, I know, I understand, and I'll pay you. Well, after that, we had several contractors. Over $200,000 that was owed to us. And to make things even worse, my mom lived with us 2 years after my father passed away. She was with us for 17 years, which was really a great experience. However, she gave us $30,000 down on the house that we owned at that time and that we bought. And it was kind of our dream house. It was in a very elite neighborhood.
And that was her contribution.
And she decided to do that. However, behind my back, when we got into a pinch, he asked my mom for another $12,000. So this was $42,000 that we owed her, and we were losing everything. Contractors weren't paying, and so we were in debt. And we also got some bad advice from an accountant, and it happened to be at a church elder, believe it or not, in our church that we were in eldership with. And he said, you know what, you're behind. It's okay. Just don't pay your payroll taxes. I'm serious. And so for 3 years, we never paid any tax or any payroll tax. And so it surmounted into $130,000 that we owed IRS. And so we had 3 mortgages on our house. It just kept getting worse because we had this big business we had to support, and over $200,000 wasn't coming in. We had credit card debts, we had loans, we had material bills. So here we are with 2 young children, my mother living with us, owing her $42,000. She had no money left. My family was furious with me because I was kind of the youngest spoiled brat in their mind anyway. And so we owed IRS $130,000. I was working 2 jobs. I got another job. I traveled back and forth from Lancaster. We just couldn't do it anymore. So we decided to put our house on the market, and it wouldn't sell. And I walked around that thing, in Jesus' name, and it would not sell. I'm like, it's going to sell for double of what we paid for it, so we can pay everything back, and it would not sell. And that was really hard. So we had no choice. In 1989, we filed bankruptcy. And so we had around $500,000 total debt at that point, plus 3 mortgages on our house. And it was really hard. We moved out on the day after Christmas in 1989, and we went to live with friends of ours who had a lot of money and a big house, and it was elders at our church, and took us in. My mom went to live with my brother, and that was a hard day. Dave went through a really big depression at that time, didn't want to work. I got a management job and was working. I just was striving, and Dave was shutting down basically at the same time. We were working long hours, and the problem is when you file bankruptcy, IRS doesn't go away. So everything else did, and we still owed that $130,000, and they were coming after us. And so 6 months later, we moved into this tiny little 1-bedroom apartment, and I'll never forget, we had lived with friends long enough to get our feet on the ground a little bit, and when we moved in this little tiny hole-in-the-wall apartment, Tanya, she was about 12 at that time. She said, we sit down for dinner one night. She says, Mommy, Daddy, I love this house so much better than our big house. And he said, why? She said, because you're here in this house. You weren't in our big house. And I never forgot that. No matter what you go through, your kids, they don't know if you own a house or not, but they know if you're there and if you're not. And so that was really hard. I'll never forget that. And in August of 1992, I got pregnant with Aaron, who was our youngest. And I was in bed for 4 months because they felt that I was going to lose my kidneys. They gave us an option to abort him because my condition was so severe. They didn't know if I was going to make it or not, and we chose not to. And but that was really a struggle. We struggled to meet ends meet. And but God brought Aaron. He's an amazing young man today, and he's really a covenant, his life of what God has done in our lives. And there was some prophetic words over him, and so it's really neat to see how that worked out. Another thing we did, Dave did every multi-level marketing business you could imagine to make a buck, a fast buck. We're going to get out of it. And I'm like, oh, I could not stand Amway. I could not stand Shackley. I could not stand Hilcoa. I mean, I can name it all. You ask, and we had the books and tapes. I think this move, we just threw them away. Did we? Okay, thank you, Lord.
After this last move, we did.
Right.
After 20 years, right?
Because you couldn't buy a tape player to play them, probably. But anyway. But I just could not stand multi-level, and it was such a sore, because we never made any money. We bought all the books and everything, and he would go to people's houses to show the plan and lead them to the Lord, or it was just like he was ministering, and we weren't making money, and it infuriated me again. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I'm a little vocal, so I kind of shared my feelings on my sleeves, and so, all right.
Sure. Well, the thing is, if you were to see her brothers and sisters, you would not think they come from the same family, really, because she's so extremely gregarious. They are also quiet and anyway, we moved to Lancaster in 1996. We moved to Lancaster. My business dried up in New Jersey, which was God. But we moved there. We went to a church here for 2 years just to take a break. And we rented a house. Okay. Right. Oh, yeah. And so in that process, our key, what did you say? Our key verse was Isaiah, when we moved up here, our key verse, Isaiah 43:18. Do not remember the former things. And so that was our key verse. And we went through a lot of pain up to that point. but we discovered that was just a walk in the park compared to what we were going to go through.
So, yeah. So that was our verse that was really difficult. We hired an accountant to help us to get a compromise to forgive our IRS. That was a big thing because they were on our back. And in the meantime, here in Lancaster, we both, at the very same time, came down with having disc problems in our back and could not work. We were in bed at the same time with back issues. For 6 weeks, neither one of us could work. And my mom was living with us, and she helped us with the kids. And but that God used that for a blessing because we found this accountant who helped us. It was over a 2-year period of fighting with the IRS, just trying to talk to them. We wanted to make payments, but how are you going to make payments on $130,000? And just the interest, and it just keeps building, and it keeps building.
The IRS lost the paperwork.
Right, and so we had to start all over again. And would you know the IRS forgave us all but $2,000. And $2,000 were paid by friends. In fact, Keith Yoder was our counselor at that point, and I think him and Marion put in $1,000, and a couple other friends put in $1,000. And what a huge miracle. And we were like, this was our second chance. And so right after that, I came down with pancreatitis. I was in the hospital for a whole week. We had no insurance. Just that poverty mentality, could never make it, never spent more. I mean, if you would have looked at us all these years, you would have thought, wow, yeah, they don't live, we had beat up cars. I mean, it wasn't like we were going out on these expensive excursions.
I never bought a boat. No.
I mean, it was... but anyway, so in 1999, we borrowed money on my mom's credit card to pay for a down payment on a house, $2,000. Always living on the edge and never paying our personal taxes on time. And so Dave became the associate pastor of Capital Worship Center at that time in the ministry we're involved in. I think I just said your whole part there.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, and I'm ready for a fresh start there.
Well, that's good.
All right, I'll just keep going. Okay. So anyway, so...
Wait, it's my turn.
I'm yellow.
Oh, that's right.
We are getting our colors mixed up. Okay. Anyway, so in spring of 2004, here we are with Dave as associate pastor of Capital Worship Center. And so we had bought this house. We were there for 5 years. And we felt the Lord leading us up to the church property in Gap and to live right there. There was 22 acres, a big house. And God had spoke about starting Cavod Academy. So we were in debt at that time, $80,000.
Can I just interject?
Yes.
Most of the debt we had was because we didn't save money for the IRS, seriously. We didn't learn how to budget our money and save money for taxes, and that really was most of it.
So we found ourselves again, so we decided to sell the house because we wanted to move in the mountain. In 2 days, it sold in cash. And we made $80,000, and here we're fresh start. Okay, so this is another fresh start. Like, I think there's 5 here that we have. And so, like, Lord, thank you. We were so grateful to the Lord. And all the time, all these years, we were heavily involved in ministry. And we saw lots of fruit in ministry. We were so in agreement in ministry. It was amazing. But our personal lives, financially, were a mess. But we loved one another.
We had a great marriage.
We did.
No, seriously, we had a great marriage. Our finances were a wreck.
That's right. That's right. So summer 2004, the Lord spoke about starting Cavod Academy of the Arts, and that it came by a prophetic word that I would start. Ooh, yeah, okay. Got to keep going here. I got my sign. Okay, so that I would start an academy that would go throughout the world for its excellence with dance and drama and theater, and it would have classes. And so, to make a long story short, 2004, we started, had 25 students right on the mountain there in the church property. Only to live there 3 years later, and the whole ministry collapsed and fell apart, and we went through a major shaking.
Not Cavod.
Not Cavod, the church, right. July 2007, we purchased a townhouse near Shady Maple. 3 years later, we came down off the mountain then as things were falling apart. And we moved Cavod into to New Holland. And we began to say, God said, if you just have enough faith, I'll double your enrollment. And so we moved into New Holland, and I wrote a grant, went to businesses, and they gave us $17,000 to remodel a space, and that was the beginning of our growth, and we more than doubled that year for the academy. And so we also, moving off the mountain now, right? Okay, so if you get the picture, all these different fresh starts. When we moved on the mountain debt-free, moved off the mountain 3 years later with $35,000 in debt.
It was a pattern. It was
No, it wasn't 35. That was the next fresh start. It was, sorry. It was 77,000. Anyway, seriously, it was unbelievable how you just, and a lot of that was ministry trips. We had to go to Europe. That was a lot of the call, the expectation of being pastors in this international ministry is that we had to attend the conference, and a credit card wasn't a debt. Okay. If you made payments.
Consistent payments, it was not a debt.
And so we would put it on the credit card. So that was part of the $77,000. Do you want to share that story? Or maybe you don't.
Oh, yeah. You know, in the process of this whole scenario when we owed this money, and again, some of it was the IRS, God gave me a dream. And in this dream, I saw this Amish man that I used to work for milking cows when I was like 14 to 15 years old in this dream. And in my dream, I literally went up to him and asked for a loan. And so I did. I stopped by where he lived because I remembered that, where he lived, because I have a memory. And so I stopped in, and he was literally in his house. I went in and asked him, God gave me this. I explained to him that God gave me this dream that I should come to you and ask for a loan. And he did. He loaned us $20,000 for, again, to pay the IRS, which is horrible. But he said, on the way to the bank, he said, I'm not sure why I'm doing this. But he did. He loaned the money, which was godly.
So as we are here, we bought this townhouse that we borrowed money from the realtor that was a friend of ours, and here in East Earl, and we lived there, and we were broken. We found ourselves in $77,000 in debt again, and we're like, God, I kept crying out. I said, Dave, there is a principle we're missing. We're not spending money. What is happening?
It's just always, like, it would bother me.
It drove the heck out of him. He's like, well, what's the principle? I said, I don't know, but we have to find out.
Something is missing. Yes.
Cry out to the Lord. What is going on here? And so we felt defeated, abandoned, and we decided, well, let's try to get rid of $35,000 of credit cards. And so we went to a credit card company, and within 3 years, we tore them up. 3 years, we got rid of that, which was great. We took the Dave Ramsey course 2 times. Couldn't agree on it because he is the free-spirited person. He doesn't write anything down. I am the nerd that writes everything down.
Yeah, if you ever take the Dave Ramsey course, he does this test where you do a test where you're the free spirit and the nerd. So she was number 10 in the nerd. I was number 10 in free spirit. So.
Right. And so,
True.
I mean, we could not, like, he doesn't, I think he's doing, well, you're doing wonderfully now, but he wouldn't look, he would just draw a line, the checkbook balance. Okay, it doesn't equal, all right, I have $50 in the bank. And I would be like, what? I had to equal to the penny. So that was part of then we would just like, okay, whatever. And that's just kind of how we lived. Colby Services, we were thinking of doing some, working with kids and having some, doing a foster care there. And we walk in, they wanted to interview us, and they were very concerned. So you need for an interview. And we walked in holding hands and laughing, and this older gentleman looked at us. He says, you guys okay? We're like, yeah. He said, you love each other? We're like, yeah, we do. He's like, I'm a pastor. He's like, oh, you're a pastor. Wow. He's like, well, you just took this test, and all the 30 years that I've been doing this, I have never met anyone so different as the two of you. You're sure you're okay? He said, Financially, you are on the opposite end of the court. Right. And we're like, yeah, we know. We were laughing. Yeah, we're in debt. We know. Yeah, we're not making it. And so for another 5 years, we struggled financially. Yeah. Well, January 2013, Cavod was bursting and overflowing with enrollments. And we found another building, which was so God. And this building is right now is a strip store in New Holland, in the strip mall. And we met with a property manager company, and she's like, we knew God was telling us to move there.
This is part of the redemption now. We're on the redemption end? Okay. So
and we met with a property management company there, and she's like, do you have any, because we felt this was God, okay? Do you have any money? We're like, no. She says, do you have any collateral? We're like, no, sorry. Do you have any debt?
We had no debt.
We're like, no, we don't have any debt. And she's like, you're going to really need to prove this story in order for
that is
this
with
company.
Cavod. We had no debt
with Cavod. Forget the personal was over here. So, so anyway, we took our story, we wrote it down. I did a lot of research, got some references, and she said, you can always ask for some money down. Maybe this big company, Brixmor, will give it to you. And we're like, okay. So we prayed about it as a board. Our motto is you can always ask for the world, they can only say no. One businessman told me that one time. I'll ask for the world, they can always say no. We're a nonprofit, and so we do a lot of looking for sponsors and ask for the world. Kristen knows, she's our director of marketing back here. So we asked for $113,000, and they gave us $113,000. And the cost was $200,000, and so we ended up being, August 2013, remodeling that whole thing debt-free. Well, in March of 2013 is where you're going to
this is part of where the redemption starts. And we went to a Dove conference in March of 2013. And I went kind of kicking and screaming because I wasn't really into conferences. But that's where we started our journey. And so we got hooked up. We partnered. We became a partner church with Dove. And Brian Souter became our oversight. And we met with him monthly. He spoke at our church one time about El Shaddai, God who is more than enough. And it planted a seed in my spirit that, hey, something is not quite connecting. In our business, in my business, my drywall business, all the numbers, I was doing really well in my drywall business. What I meant is all the numbers connected. And I did do better with that. I learned how to do numbers. So, and in Cavod, Cavod was doing well. The numbers, it was doing well. It was being blessed. And the church was blessed. But our personal finances were still a wreck, seriously. And the key was...
Well, you met with Larry Kreider.
Yeah.
And Larry says, so why can't you get out of debt? Because we just thought...
What's stopping you, right?
What's stopping you? And we're like, we just thought we were going to owe the IRS like you do tithe, for the rest of your life. I really honestly felt like we would never, ever see light. Just make payments, and it's going to be part of our budget, that we didn't have. And so, but he challenged Dave, and he said, God works miracles. You will be a different person. I challenge you. If you make that a priority, I don't know how it's going to happen. And him and Brian both gave us hope, and we became accountable to them. And then in November of 2014, we went away to a cabin to the mountains to pray and rest. And we were just crying out to God. I said, God, there is a principle. We have to find this. We have to find
What's
this.
the missing principle?
What is missing? And we were desperate at this point.
And so we just, from God spoke to my spirit, and we just both knelt down and just said, God, show us what it is. And then he prompted me saying, we need to do a budget, and we need to come up with a plan of action to get rid of our debt. And for me to say that is like, let's go to the moon tonight. Seriously, I am just that free-spirited. So we did. We fell on our knees and we cried out. And the next 2 days, we worked on a plan of action to get rid of our debt. And we stayed with it.
And the Lord spoke to Dave, said two main change. I had this big revelation. You need to make 2 changes. One of them is you need to pay your taxes.
That's a revelation.
Wow. And then you need to pay your tithe. And so, it's almost embarrassing to admit that many years that we did not have that principle in order.
35 years we were married.
But something supernatural happened at that time. And we were so desperate. We worked for 2 days, by line item by line item. See, we had Dave Ramsey, so we had that in the grain.
We had the budget. We at least had the...
And we worked 2 solid days in the mountains and worked on that budget and prayed over that and cried over it. And we became something supernatural. We knew something. We felt the change.
We got into agreement. That's what happened.
And we came home, and at Christmas, we prayed over our children. They looked at us like, Mom and Dad, what is happening to you? And we prayed for our kids, and it was amazing to see.
We have time.
Just amazing to see what was happening to them. We prayed against the spirit of poverty and the generational curses on our kids. And all of a sudden, Derek's business started booming. He built a new house. Our kids each bought a house. Their lives drastically changed. And our lives changed drastically. The budget was not a prison. It's not a prison. I'll just say that again. A budget is not a prison. It gives you freedom. Because all of a sudden, when you start to budget, I have money for clothes. Dave would not even let me spend what was in the budget before. if it was $90, and I would come home from Shady, he would be on the computer and say, "You spent $90 at Shady, didn't you?"
And you
I'm
spent
like,
$93.
93. And I'm like, I'm not even home. My groceries are not unloaded. And you're looking to see, that was in the budget. But on this new way of thinking, he began to believe in me. He began to honor me. He began to say, okay, let's take the risk and just spend in the budget and see what happens. And I was able to save for clothes. I was able to get things, and Dave Ramsey really teaches you to live, don't live crazy off the, be careful. But you have to eat out once in a while. You have to buy clothes. That's reality.
Spending money, yeah.
And put that right in your budget. And we did that, and we saw things change, like amazing.
Yeah, Haggai 1:6 says, that God said to the Israelites, you have bags that have holes in them. So I want to repair those bags. And that's what happened. We literally repaired the holes in the bags. And God blessed. And from that point, I had a certain amount that I drew out from my business. And from that point on, I would give myself consistent raises, like $100 every 3 months. It's like the blessing of the Lord just overtook me. Here it comes. Okay, the blessing of the Lord is overtaking me. Okay, all right. And so God blessed my business. And that's how, because of the decision we made, we got out of debt.
And we had a 2-year plan. In August of 2015, the Academy again doubled in size. Mm-hmm. So the landlord, we needed another building at the end. There was another building open, and we decided one of our big contributors said, hey, I'll start you off with $35,000. And we remodeled that whole thing into a theater, and the landlord again gave us another $100,000.
And along with that, the blessing of the Lord was on the church also. It was amazing to see how, and again, it's not about numbers. It's not about the nail, right? Okay. It's not about numbers. It's about the blessing of the Lord. And it seems like when the blessing of the Lord is on something, it continues to grow and develop. Have you noticed that?
And so we just consistently, every month, we would sit down and go over our budget, and we would tweak it. You're not going to do it perfect the first time. Every month, we would tweak it, and we would be in agreement. We would never do it before we go to bed, because sometimes we would fight, and we don't go to bed angry. And so that was really one big principle. But we were determined to be in agreement together in our budget. And it was hard work, but it was so, so worth it. And then in November of 2015, we were just sitting at our kitchen table praying, said, God, we are so tired. We really need a vacation. Do you think you could provide something amazing, something far away? Because I can't shut down unless I'm far away. And so just take us away somewhere. And a week later, Derek, our son, calls us and says he has a client that has a villa in Italy. And all we have to do is buy tickets to get there. And we found these reasonable tickets. We had money in the bank. We got there, and here it was $11,000 villa right in the hills of Italy. And it was unbelievable. We had servants and maids, and it was all free. It was crazy. Yeah. And that was a blessing of the Lord. This is right in the middle of being on our budget. Faithfully and not really having money to go on vacation.
That's right. Well, we wrote down, every month we would write down our financial goals because we would get together and do our budget. And one of the things that God spoke to my spirit about is that Christmas of 2015, a year ago, God spoke to my spirit and said, we're not going to be in this house next year. And I told my kids that when we got together for Christmas.
That was last year, 2000.
That was last year, 2015. Not 16, 2015.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
right, and so I just had a sense that God is going to give us another house.
And I laughed. I laughed in front of our kids. I'm like, yeah, Dad, he's a dreamer.
I am a dreamer. Yeah.
And it comes off sometimes.
I'm a free spirit, remember?
And I'm like, it's okay, yeah. And they were like, ha, 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 yeah, another house, really, And so, because we weren't out of debt yet, so we're like, we have one more year is what we were projecting. And so anyway, into October 31st of this past year, 2016, we made our last payment to IRS. Yes.
Hallelujah.
We had $35,000 total in this 2-year plan of debt that we had to get rid of, and most of it was IRS. And we made our last payment. And
the last payment to the Amish man, too.
To the Amish man, right. And so, and believe it or not, the week after we made that payment, we got a letter from the IRS saying, 2 years ago, we overpaid $1,100. You now have a tax credit. I mean, is that hilarious? Is that God? And we never had a tax credit. We were laughing and laughing. It was so awesome. And so, right that same week, we paid off their payment. Our good friends, Jeremy and Carolyn, who are back here with us, they saw a house down the street from them and said, hey, we have a neighbor who has a house going on the market. You got to look at it. And we're like, yeah, right, whatever. We just paid off our last payment. And we're like, okay, well, let's go look. You never know. He says he's not, he might give you a good deal. He isn't going through a realtor. We walked in there. We're like, this is our house. This is awesome. It needs tons of work, but we could do this. Can we do this? And Dave's like, yeah, we can do this. And so they gave us this amazing deal, 4-bedroom, 2-story house, big backyard. Guess what it has? A fireplace. I love a fireplace. It has a fire pit in the backyard. It has a screened-in porch. It's very ordinary, very common, but to us, it was huge.
It's like a mansion.
And I'm able to entertain. I have to be around people almost 24/7. And so I love entertaining. And so I couldn't entertain in the little townhouse. Well, I did, but it was on top of each other. But this God used so mightily. So in October, we looked at it. They gave us this deal. They split the difference of the realtor. Instead of taking it all in their pocket, they gave us part of the credit. And we're like, okay, we need $15,000 down. We're like, oh, $15,000 down. And Dave, being the free-spirited, keeps track of his checkbook in the business, but not, main like I would. Anyway, there was $15,000 in our checkbook of the business to pay the down payment.
God glory, yeah.
And it was just amazing. And so we made settlement December the 1st, this past year, and we moved in December 10th. And those 10 days, we gutted the whole thing. We had money. We did the carpet. We took out walls. We repainted the whole thing. My brother, we had people from church. Nelson Martin came in and helped us with the flooring. We had people helping out, and we redone that whole thing, and it's a huge facelift, even before we moved in. December 10th, we moved in, and we lit the fire for Christmas and had all our kids home, and it was amazing.
The ironic thing is, amen, give God glory, hallelujah. The ironic thing is, when we went to buy the house, the mortgage broker said, well, we need to sell our house, right? He said, no, based on the figures you gave me, you don't need to sell your house.
Our townhouse.
A townhouse, right. Thank you. So we are now landlords and we own a house, which is like, what?
We're like, we don't need to sell this house? You're kidding me. We're like, okay, there's no way the mortgage is going to go through like that.
So we were on a trip to Myrtle Beach, another vacation, blah, blah, blah,
Somebody gave it to us.
Yeah, so, and a blessing, on the way to there, Connie put it on Facebook, we have a house to rent. 5 minutes later, somebody's
called. Like, I want to see that. Please put me first in line. When we came home, they looked at it. They were people that their kids go to Cavod. We knew them well. They just were so excited, and we rented it. And there were four other houses, townhouses, in our development for rent. That's been up. One was up for about 6 months, and ours rented first without even a sign out in the front. And
God gave us a strategy too. We made the rent less expensive than all the others. I mean, seriously, we thought it's better to rent the house for an extra month and have that money come in, right? Amen.
We started making decisions like that were really, that we could think, not based on the bottom line, but based on the overall vision. We started thinking differently. We still think differently. And I can tell you that anybody can do this. If we can be in debt $500,000 plus mortgages, plus having these bad mindsets.
Having it happen 3 times.
And God giving us at least 3. I think we counted 5. Look, that's number 5. Anyway, giving us all these chances. And then to see the Lord, fill up our bags. And all of a sudden, Dave's business, you may look at your situation sometimes, or somebody that you may know, and say, well, how in the world am I ever going to have enough money for the end of the month? It's just not there. It's not like your situation. Our situation was like that. But when you stand in agreement,
that's right.
And you start to see God move,
that's right.
God can do anything when you're in agreement. I don't care what it is in your marriage. If you are in agreement, that's a powerful, powerful thing.
And one of the things that God said to me all along is to be grateful, to have a thankful heart. And I every day I just thank God for our health, I thank God for how he's blessed us and to have a grateful heart. I think somebody else, Marie, you touched on that, having a grateful heart. So that's the blessing. So
We've not arrived by any chance at all. I mean, by any means at all. But we are so grateful. We wake up every morning in our house, and we must say it 5 times a day and call each other. Again, it's nothing outlandish. I'm sure there's plenty more beautiful homes. But to us, it's a place of peace. It's a place that God has done a miracle. We have this beautiful window that looks out to the birds and the trees. We're not used to that in our little townhouse. And we sit there in the morning. Dave has this unconditional love for everyone and anyone, and no matter what happens.
I'm a pastor.
And so he has this love for me that goes beyond what I deserve. And I've learned to really respect, and we've learned to respect one another. That's huge when you're working on a budget, is to be able to respect in finances. And so we feel really blessed, but we still work at it. We will budget the rest of our lives. We will always, every month, take that. Now it's kind of fun. It's like, because now you can see the finances that God's provided. What's God going to do this month? And how is he going to take care of us this month?
How can we bless others?
Right, exactly. And so I think there's one thing I did fail to say, is that last summer, the Academy doubled again in size, and we ended at 850 enrollments. With 3 buildings. The landlord gave us another building to build our sets that was empty right in the same plaza, 3,000 square feet, for $100 a month. That's another miracle. And so now we have 3 buildings, over 15,000 square feet. And it's not always easy. We still depend on donations because we're nonprofit. The church had doubled in size over the last 2 years, and it is growing, and we've seen the blessing of the Lord. Was it without issues? Is it without no, but we have a different perspective. We know who our God is.